This might sound strange, but to start with, so-called black people aren't really black. That's right, black people are not black. Now hold on a minute, I know what you're thinking. Of course they're not really black, but brown. That's correct, but that's not what I mean. Black people, black as an identity, or should I say, black people as a nation, don't really exist.
My professional name will be my chosen and my legal name, which is Yassine Bey.
The Europeans took our science, our mathematics, our master astrology, and ruled the world. We took on his idol god religions and fell. That's what your problem is. It's not emotional, it's not racism, it's scientific.
Medicine, geography, rhetoric, chemistry, physics, mathematics, and astronomy by Moorish philosophers. Moorish philosophers. I'm just gonna wait till you put it in tape in. And this decapitation was taking place in Mexico. This ain't in Spain. This is in Mexico. Dates. It doesn't have a date on this particular page here, but I'm sure it's around 1600, somewhere around that time. Somewhere around that time, time of the conquistadors and so on and so forth. And it says that the ones who did Inquisition was conferred, dangerous radicals were considered were the ones who was teaching mathematics, geography, rhetoric, all these things at that time. These are the ones who they were decapitating. It says the Inquisition was also an excuse to rid the planet of such organized mystics as Illuminati, pantheists, Manichaeans, and Albigensians. So Moors, all these are represented all in one breath as one thing. This Inquisition was for all these so-called people. This is one example of the connection between them. And it says, all the accused were presumed guilty before trial. Now, these are so-called Christians. All the guilty were presumed guilty before there was even a trial. Sounds familiar, sounds like what's happening to us now. A trial which took place in absolute secrecy. Sound like the backroom police stations. The defendant was afforded no counsel. Accuser and judge were the same person. The names of witnesses against the defendant were withheld from him. Women, children, and slaves could not be used as witnesses by the defendant, but could be used by the prosecution, who could obtain them by torture. And it says minor penalties could be commuted, paid off, bribery, we know the corruption already. And then it says, now check this, it says, the victim's goods was subject to confiscation and were incorporated into the royal and church domains. We talk about reparations. And this is Europeans saying where our wealth went to. It says that the victim's goods, subject to confiscation, we're talking about land, gold, everything, subject to confiscation were incorporated into the royal crown and the church domains. The inquisitors who paid no taxes and gave no account of confiscation effectively took their share. As a deterrent to possible opposition in New Spain, Mexico, 34 Negroes, including 4 women, were hanged and decapitated in Mexico City. So as a deterrent against the Moors, Illuminati, all the stuff like this, as a deterrent, they hanged 30 Negroes and nobody else. So what is that telling you? That was us, the Moors.
Agent 666 here, Wednesday, April 11th, 2012. Now, not to be very funny or anything, but looking at many of these cases with black youths being gunned down in the streets like that, there have never really been any real political or economic solution to the problem that I've heard of or come across. What I do notice, though, are a lot of videos on YouTube talking about Moorish science, Moorish belief systems, common law factors, things on the Social Security fraud and the birth certificate fraud and things of that nature, and how when you're a newborn coming through maritime law, being birthed through the birth canal, and how you're going through the waters of the birth canal to be birthed into the world, and how the government system rewards you with a number that can be traded on the stock exchange, your birth certificate, bond number, and you having Social Security and coming into the economics and the political system of that country, particularly the United States, is what's focused on in their system. And now the Queen of England cashes in on all of that money anyway. The point is, reviewing these type of videos and applying those philosophies to what goes on in the real world, if you really want to engage it, I propose that certain black groups, black organizations, and black in quotes, because it depends on, what terminology you would want to define yourself as a nation. But let's just use black because that's a common terminology. African American, it really doesn't matter. We're talking about a particular people. Now, if they have problems being gunned down in the streets with, white supremacy and these type of issues, well, how do you resolve it? I mean, what can you propose, given all of those factors, given all of that knowledge, all of that wisdom? I mean, if you start attacking the situation economically, that may be a way to propose, to do damage control. Because how do you attack law enforcement? How do you attack these type of issues? One of the best ways to attack it is by using some of those laws and applying them in some kind of way. If it's something that can be engineered in a way to
because he was a black man, by being a black man or claiming any of those marks, you're 3/5 of a citizen. And by being that, you hold no water in the government status. So when you have nationality, you have your own people, you have your own council to back you up, that's when, he could have had a real trial going on.
Flag is a red flag with a 5-pointed green star in the center. The 5 points represent love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. This flag is over 10,000 years old and is most currently known as the flag of Morocco, a small state on the northwestern tip of Amexem, or Africa. However, this flag prior to the Moroccan independence of 1956 was represented on North American shores by the lawfully chartered organization authorized to nationalize ex-slaves, the Moorish Holy Temple of Science of America. Who are the Moors? Moors are descendants of the ancient Moabite or Hamitic people. When one hears of the Moorish invasion of Spain, they may be under the assumption, due to traditional colonial miseducation, that Moors were Arab and not African. However, this is a misconception. According to J. Rogers in his classical work, Nature Knows No Color Line, he states, "These Africans were Moors, sometimes called Arabs because of their language." Further, George G.M. James, author of Stolen Legacy, states, "In the 7th century AD, the Moors, i.e. natives of Mauritania in North Africa, invaded Spain and took with them the Egyptian culture they preserved." He further states, "As such, the people of North Africa were the neighbors of the Egyptians and became the custodians of Egyptian culture, which they spread throughout considerable portions of Africa, Asia Minor, and Europe." Terms such as Negro, Black, Colored, Ethiopian, African, etc., used by many in referring to Moorish people as a crime against humanity. One may speak of a person's complexion as being black, brown, tan, or pale, but in reference to nationhood, this is a sin. During the Atlantic slave trade, descendants of Africa, Moors, were branded with the names of their slaveholders. As a result of this crime, the slaves lost their true lineage, which was personified in their proper and free and national names. The names Chong, Jose, Bob, and Schumann all tell you of the nationality of those who carry them. Just as the descendants of Africa were stripped of their personal identity, so were they robbed of their national names. Descendants of these slaves, regardless of their pedigree, have since been lumped into several conglomerations of social classification. But this is a new time and era, when all men and women must proclaim their free and national name in order to be recognized by the governments in which they live and to all nations of the earth. And now there's only one thing left to do. Proclaim your Moorish nationality and link yourselves with the families of nations.